Hi. If you work with clients who engage in self-destructive behavior, you know how anxiety-producing, how at times overwhelming, frustrating, and even frightening that work can be. You know that these issues are complex and they're layered, and I'm sure that you have struggled with understanding why your client engages in these destructive behaviors and how you can best help them. When we talk about the concept of self-destructive behavior, I think it's really important to kind of expand your vision and know that we're not just talking about cutting. We're talking about other acts of mutilation on the body, but we're also talking about the eating disordered behaviors and any substance abuse addiction, sexual addiction, pornography addiction, video or gaming addiction that your clients might be engaging in. Any of those behaviors kind of lead your client to the same place, which is this state of dissociation and numbing. I want you to understand that the traditional approaches that we were all taught back in the day, that we were told would help our clients to let go of their self-destructive behaviors, often backfire and don't work. So things like insisting on a standard safety contract or making the continuation of the therapeutic relationship contingent upon the client agreeing to give up their destructive behavior without giving them anything else to replace that behavior. Associating self-harm with what I think is a death sentence in the mental health field, and that's borderline personality disorder. Focusing exclusively on the self-destructive behavior and not doing that deeper dive to understand the deeper communication that's underneath it. And the one that I was taught in grad school as well, which was, tell your client that when you get the impulse to hurt yourself, always call me first. I can tell you from personal experience that that will backfire. It inadvertently creates codependency. It sets the client up for failure and rejection and disappointment. You cannot be available 24/7, and you shouldn't be available 24/7. I'm Lisa Ferentz, and from my 40 years of experience as a clinician and a consultant, I can tell you that the more you pathologize these behaviors, seeing them as attention-seeking or the byproduct of borderline, the more hopeless you will feel and the less likely it is that your clients will actually heal. I have been blessed with the opportunity to train countless clinicians at my institute, at conferences, and on clinical sites, both nationally and internationally. I've listened to my clients, and most importantly, I've learned from them. I've written 3 books on the subject on how to work with and treat self-destructive behavior, and I continue to learn from everyone that I am privileged to treat. So here's the solution. Here's what we can do. We can instead look at these behaviors through a trauma-informed lens, recognizing that these are our clients' creative attempts to cope, to self-soothe, and to communicate their trauma and their pain narratives, trauma that has never been compassionately witnessed or metabolized. Later in this video, I'm going to teach you about CARESS, and I'm very excited to share this with you. It stands for Communicate Alternatively, Release Endorphins, and Self-Soothe. And this is going to be your alternative to standard safety contracts. But first, let me tell you a story. And it's actually why I decided that I couldn't keep doing the stuff that I had learned in the past. So when I first entered the field, I really didn't understand what self-destructive behavior was about. And I assumed, as probably a lot of you have as well, that my job was to get rid of it as fast as I could. And then Rona entered my life. And early on in our therapy, she summoned tremendous courage. And one day literally rolled up her sleeve and she showed me that there was a very big cut mark. And with a lot of shame, wasn't even able to make eye contact, she said, "Maybe you should know that this is something that I do." Now, if you've ever been in this position, you probably can guess what my immediate response was, which was, I have to call 911. I have to get her to the ER as fast as possible, because my assumption was that she was telling me that she was suicidal and that she wanted to kill herself. So I actually said to her, listen, I'm going to take you to the ER. And fortunately, she had the fortitude and the courage to say to me, sit down and I will explain to you what this is and why I do it. And this is where I think it's so critically important to be humble as a clinician and to trust and believe that your client has the wisdom, has the answers. Our job is not to impose our own assumptions or expectations, but to really listen. And she explained to me that when she felt overwhelmed, when she felt stressed, when she felt spacey, when she got triggered, this is something that she did. And although she didn't understand why, it made her feel better. On one level, that made sense to me. But on the other hand, I heard all of my professors' voices in my head saying, get her to sign a contract. Make her promise that she's not going to cut herself anymore. And that's what I did. I made her sign that contract. And she signed it, kind of begrudgingly, but she did. She came back the next week, and the very first thing she did when she walked into the office was she rolled up her sleeve because she couldn't wait to show me 3 brand new, deep cut marks that she had made. And fortunately, in that moment, I also realized that this was a power struggle that I was going to continue to lose, and that she had to show me that the answer was not stop doing what you're doing, but rather the answer is I had to learn about really in depth why she was doing what she was doing. And further, I couldn't expect her to stop cutting herself unless and until I gave her other things to replace what cutting had given her. And I will always be grateful to her because she became one of the teachers of my heart. She helped me to understand that I absolutely did not have any of the answers when it came to treating self-destructive behavior. And I want to normalize that if you've encountered this with your own clients, it makes sense that your sort of intuitive initial response is, I've got to get them to stop doing this behavior. Instead, you have to learn about it, you have to understand it, and then you have to provide your clients with the alternatives that they need so that they can genuinely comfort themselves and communicate their pain narrative. And that is how they begin to heal. So we're not going to focus on getting rid of it. We're going to talk about understanding it and then learning how we can replace it. Fortunately, although I was young, one of the things I did realize is if something isn't working, don't do it more and harder. Do something different. And I think that what we need to do is allow the client to teach us. We have to ask the right questions. We have to model compassion, and we have to model tremendous curiosity. And if we're willing to create that context, then clients will give us the answers that we need. So let me tell you a little bit more about caress. Again, it stands for communicate alternatively, release endorphins, and self-soothe. When the client gets the impulse to hurt themselves, rather than saying to them, you cannot, instead what we're going to say is when you get the impulse before you hurt yourself, you're going to do one thing under each of these 3 categories. And by just creating that difference in language, you're no longer demanding or insisting that the client not engage in a behavior that, frankly, for a long time has worked for them. We're giving them options, we're giving them choices, and we are expanding the repertoire of ways in which they can genuinely comfort and soothe themselves. So for example, under communicate alternatively, the client might journal about what they're feeling when they're getting that impulse to hurt themselves. They might draw the body part that they want to injure and actually draw the cut marks or the burn mark. And then we can go back and talk about if that wound could talk, what would it say? They might make a recording on their phone to talk about, again, what they're hoping to achieve, what triggered them, or how they're feeling when they're getting that impulse. When they move to the next part of the cycle, releasing endorphins, we know that hurting the body is going to release endorphins, but we're going to give our clients other healthier ways in which they can get that same benefit. And that includes a burst of physical activity, that includes laughter, and that includes hugging. And then we move to self-soothe, where we can offer them a myriad of possible strategies, everything from listening to comforting music, to giving their hands a massage with soothing hand lotion, to reading positive affirmations, to taking a warm bubble bath, to putting on music and dancing. And what you will see is that these 3 pieces are going to meet the very same need that cutting themselves, hurting themselves, using their eating disorder behavior, turning to their addiction has been accomplishing for them. One of the major differences that caress will provide, as opposed to the strategies that they've been using, is that it's not going to land your client in guilt or shame. They're not going to feel like they failed. They're not going to feel hopeless. Instead, they're going to be genuinely comforted and soothed. And we want to make that distinction in our work with our clients, that there is a very big difference between dissociation and numbing, which is what they've been doing with their self-destructive behavior, versus genuine comfort and soothing and self-care. And the beautiful thing about this is you're going to completely alleviate the shame, and the shame is something that actually continues to promote their self-destructive behavior. It's been 2 decades since I created this as an alternative, and I continue to refine it based on the feedback that I get from my clients. I've had the great privilege of being able to travel the world now, teaching other clinicians and community mental health organizations and residential treatment programs how to incorporate CRESS into their treatment protocols. And I am humbled and excited to tell you that the feedback that I get is always, this is wonderful. Clients love it. It genuinely makes a difference in their lives. And it also helps to increase a sense of confidence and competence in therapists, which is equally important. So I'm excited to offer you this wonderful training that we've put together that's going to help you to understand the deeper communication that's associated with self-destructive behavior. I want you to know it's a very strengths-based approach. So we are not going to be talking about borderline personality disorder. You're going to get a ton of tools for psychoeducation. You're going to get a myriad of creative strategies. You'll be able to weave in all of the paradigms that you already use, and you'll learn a whole bunch of new ones as well. And through doing this work, you will be able to help your clients organically and authentically let go of their self-destructive behavior while learning how to get their needs met in much healthier ways that, again, do not land them in shame. We're going to dive into the psychological underpinnings of self-harm. We're going to connect these behaviors to our clients' earliest experiences of insecure attachment, of affect dysregulation, of trauma, of abuse, and of unmetabolized pain. You're going to learn about the adolescent brain and its gravitational pull towards risk, pleasure, and impulsivity, and how it actually increases a teenager's vulnerability to lean into self-destructive behavior when there is that backstory of trauma, abuse, or pain. You're going to learn a very specific cycle of self-harm, which is going to explain the chronicity of the behavior, but it's also going to give you these wonderful potential intervention sites, this template for treatment. One of the most exciting aspects of this training is that you're going to be learning the ways in which you can help short-circuit this cycle before your client ever picks up the razor blade, so that the client never actually gets to the point where they feel compelled to have to lean into or use their self-destructive behavior. You'll be encouraged to process self-harm through this strengths-based, depathologized, and trauma-informed approach, something that actually brings real hope to the work. I've also created bonus material for you that I think is incredibly valuable and important and will continue to deepen your understanding of this issue. First, we're going to talk about how you can begin to process and unpack the artwork that you're going to learn to incorporate into the treatment of self-destructive behavior. Many clinicians are excited to work with art therapeutically, but they don't necessarily know how to ask the right questions. And so that bonus is going to give you a lot of good little tips and guidelines so that that work is going to be deeper for you and for the client. And I'm going to share with you my ideas about what it means to be genuinely trauma-informed and how we can bring that criteria into the work that we're doing when we're helping our clients heal from their trauma, heal from their attachment wounds, and address their self-destructive behavior. Another bonus is going to really do a deeper dive into the counter-transference that comes up for us. Again, these are challenging, difficult cases, and it's normal for these kinds of clients to bring up a lot of different emotions for us. And I want to give you some extra support to kind of normalize what we sometimes experience when we're working with this population. And that includes getting consultation when we need it and having a sense of dual awareness so that we're always tracking not only what's happening for the client, but what also is happening for us in the work. By the end of this training, you will have a newfound understanding of self-destructive behavior. You'll learn how to work with it and how to help your clients gain greater self-awareness and insight about why they do what they do. Your toolbox for creative modalities will expand dramatically. You will not be limited to just using one treatment modality. And you'll see that woven into the training, I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of my clients' artwork as well as their journaling. And you'll be able to really understand on a very profound and deep level the impact that using right brain-based modalities has in the work. Your level of anxiety and frustration will dramatically decrease, and you'll be able to lead from empathy, curiosity, and compassion. And I think these are the key ingredients in strengthening secure attachment for your clients and helping them to stay curious and self-compassionate in their healing journeys. Now, you might think that in order to be effective in this work, You need to have had many years of experience, but I want to assure you that with the right paradigm, with guidance, and the support that you're going to receive from me, you can effectively address these challenges, regardless of your years of experience in the field. And you also might think that the topic is not relevant to your caseload. But with 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 5 men experiencing some form of trauma by the time they're 18, I assure you that the majority of those brave survivors are using some form of addiction or self-destructive behavior in order to dissociate, to self-medicate, and to numb. Once you raise the issue and you let your clients know that you're open to working with addictions and self-harm in a totally unconditional and non-judgmental way, the disclosures are going to show up in your office. And let's not forget the current culture that we live in, where people are basically addicted to digital technology. And we know that there's a dramatic uptick in mental illness as a byproduct of spending hours and hours on social media, becoming addicted to gaming, to your cell phone. And so, again, these are forms of self-destructive behavior because they're dissociative, because they disconnect the client from relationship, from attachment, and from attunement. And they really do serve the purpose much of the time of numbing. So given the culture that we live in and the acceptance that we have for spending all this time on social media and digital technology, this issue of self-destructive behavior is going to show up in your office pretty much on a daily basis. And so this training is going to benefit you and your clients. Know that these clients deserve to be seen and heard and understood. They are not damaged. They are not defective. Everything about them, their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors, makes sense given where they've come from and given what they've experienced. These are creative, resilient survivors, and you can help them through this training to harness their inner wisdom, their self-compassion, their curiosity, and their creativity. You can be the beacon of hope that they so desperately need and deserve. So please join me for this innovative, creative, and exciting course. You're going to come away with expertise, insight, confidence, and competence in what you are wanting to do with your clients. You'll be able to truly make a difference in their lives, and you'll effectively help them to compassionately learn how to help and heal themselves.